Hi everyone, my name is Lillian Piccolo, and 2 weeks ago I passed the CBMT exam, and 2 months ago I failed the exam by 3 points. I decided to make this resource because when I first started studying, I felt lost and extremely overwhelmed by all of the materials out there and the conflicting advice people give you about how to study, especially after failing it the first time. In this episode, we will be covering where to begin, failing the exam the first time and what I learned, the steps I took to change the results, including lifestyle and study habits, and some extra tips. So, where to begin? Well, this is not a very original idea, but my internship supervisor and my friends all recommended that I start with a practice exam. And this you don't necessarily have to pay for. I had a few friends send some over to me, and I took it. I thought I did pretty well. I got an 82 the first time. And I thought to myself, okay, this won't be so bad. But which I guess wasn't the best attitude to have. But I think there were a lot of things that happened on the exam day that I could have controlled, and that didn't go well for me, which we'll get into that later. But starting with the practice exam is a great way to evaluate where you are at in terms of your preparedness for the exam. And this isn't really about your knowledge. It's about how to take a standardized exam. And let me say that again. This isn't about who you are as a music therapist. I'm saying it a different way now, but it is about how to answer the exam questions. That's all it's about. It's a standardized exam. So anyone can pass this exam. You can definitely pass this exam. Go into the exam thinking that you are already an MTBC. You're already a music therapist. This exam does not determine who you are as a person. And I know that's hard to actually believe, but trust me, it is true. And I know how terrible it is to feel, or how terrible it was to feel like all my worth was put into that test, and failing it honestly broke my heart. So do not compare yourself to other people out there. There are other young professionals in the same position as you, so please just shake it off. You guys got this. I believe in every single one of you. So yes, take the practice exam, and in the practice exam you'll get explanations for each question. And this is something I regret not doing the first time around. I just skimmed the answer explanations. Sorry, this is my first time making any type of podcast, and I give lots of I applaud people who do podcasts regularly, because this is way more difficult than I thought it was going to be. But yes, it's hard to find your words sometimes and not cut yourself off. So sorry, I feel like I'm a squirrel sometimes. I go from one topic to the next, which probably does not make me a good candidate for podcast. Well, anyway, back to our practice exam explanations. Please, please, please understand why the wrong answers are the wrong answers and the right answers are the right answers. This was, I think, the most important part of me passing the second time. The first time, I kind of just scanned it, and I thought, okay, that makes sense. But I didn't fully understand why the explanation was what it was. And I really tried to link the explanation to the question itself and pick out those keywords. So if it says, after validating, the next step is to, or just anything with the word step, just really put yourself in that situation. Do not think about anything else. Do not think about your personal experiences or experiences that you have heard. Please just take the question for what it says and only use what the question gives you. Do not include any outside things, because that does not exist in the question. I think that's what threw me off the first time as well. So where to begin? Definitely stick to or practice reading the questions thoroughly. Practice eliminating the questions that would not be right at all, and understanding why the answer is what it is. And, what else? Okay, so you take the practice exam. Now, what are your study materials? So, everyone and their mother says the new Music Therapist Handbook by Hanser. I personally don't really like this book, but I will admit there are a lot of things that I saw on the exam that were directly in the book. So do with that what you will. I would definitely recommend getting it. I already had it from undergrad, so I didn't have to purchase it again. But I would definitely recommend Chapter 7, Observation. I learned about this information junior year, so it had been a while, so I needed to brush up on some of those things. And honestly, the whole book is good. I just noticed that Chapter 7 had a lot of the same terminology on the exam, so definitely brush up on that. But honestly, this is all subjective, right? I mean, that's just my experience. So if you need to not brush up on Chapter 7, but, you see some things in here that you think, I don't really know this, I would definitely recommend making flashcards, or however you study the best, do that. Do not listen to these people that said, you have to do flashcards, you have to read. If reading and making flashcards don't work for you, then don't do it. Do what works for you. And that's another thing that I wish I had stuck to the first time around. I listened to tutors that they were awesome, but at the end of the day, having a study plan where I'm going to study for 1 hour and I'm going to study this, and this is not necessarily going to work for me. It might work for someone else, but like I said, it's all subjective. So please stick with what you did to study for past exams. Like, whatever works for you to retain this information, do that. So, anyway, back to our resources. I'm going on tangents here. New Music Therapist Handbook. Yes, everyone always says this. I hate to start with that because it's so basic. One book that I think is definitely underrated is Treatment Planning for Music Therapy Cases, Anita Gadberry. And I love this one because it gave you so many different cases and really great vignettes. And what else can I say about this book? Different clinical populations. That was awesome. For example, treatment planning adults with HIV/AIDS. That was actually on the exam. So going over that was great for someone like me because I had absolutely no idea where to even begin with that population. That was not where my internship was at, or like the population that my internship worked with. So that's another thing too. My population, I worked with individuals with severe and multiple disabilities, so I was very well versed with that population, the terminology, and implementation. So I didn't spend the bulk of my studying on that. I brushed up on a few things, but I definitely focused on the populations that I wasn't so sure on. So, Treatment Planning for Music Therapy Cases, Anita Gadberry. Definitely recommend that book. Another book I purchased but I didn't really end up using was Clinical Guides to Music Therapy in Adult Physical Rehabilitation Settings. This one's by Elizabeth Wong. I read one chapter and then I got tired of it, but if you are someone that is really just unsure about NMT, I would definitely scan this, but we talked about it a bit in my undergrad, so I didn't really need to drill myself on the terminology, but I definitely did memorize things like aphasia and ataxia and dyspnea, etc. So I definitely used flashcards for that. And yeah, like I said, if your internship was NMT focused, would not recommend spending too much time on that. And last but not least, I picked up the clinical training guide from the student music therapist, the Wheeler book. I thought this book was awesome. I really liked the wording she used. I thought it was a lot easier. It was a lot easier to read than the Hanser book. And like I said, I went over things that I wasn't so sure about. So, for example, improvising experiences. There was no improvising in my internship, so that was something that I was unsure of, so I went over and looked at that. And, oh, I lied. There is one more book that I grabbed in the final weeks of my studying for the second time I took it, because I wasn't in love with the Hanser book. The Music Therapy, An Introduction to the Profession, the Night book. That one was awesome. It had so many vignettes in there, and I felt like it went into way greater detail than the Hanser book in terms of the different populations, and it gave you awesome examples. Sorry, my dog just burped. I don't know if you guys heard that, but that was gross. But overall, I hate to sound like a broken record, Hanser was best for terminology on the exam, and the treatment planning for music therapy, the Gadberry book, was great for treatment planning. I mean, that's a big part of the exam. So, I mean, Domain 3, treatment implementation and documentation. There's a lot on there, so I would definitely focus the bulk of my study on that. And okay, one of my biggest pet peeves about this exam is, oh my gosh, music theory. I have to study music theory and be really diligent about studying that. No, you do not. It's such a small portion of the exam. Why are you freaking out about it? You guys got this. I know it was a long time ago. Sure, brush up on your circle of fifths and maybe, write down your 12-bar blues when you get in there. But please do not stress yourself out about music theory. Please, please, please. That's not the bulk of the exam. Please focus the majority of your time on Domain 3, which has 68 items on the exam. So I don't understand why people get their panties in a twist about music theory, because it really wasn't that bad. There were some weird questions, but I'd much rather you focus your time on the biggest part of the exam than on music theory. So that's just my personal opinion. And all right, so where to begin? We kind of just covered that. Doing what's best for you. And for me, that was making flashcards and listening to myself read a chapter. I would record a chapter the night before and then listen to it in the car, or I'd have my mom read me the practice exam questions and I'd have to explain to her why the correct answer is the right answer and why I didn't choose the other answers. So overall, study how you normally study. Do not try to change your study format just based on what other people tell you. So that's where I would begin. And all right, failing the exam the first time and what I learned. So I got out of there and went to my car, had tears rolling down my face. It was terrible. I put entirely way too much pressure on myself for this exam. Sometimes when I say words, I just don't even know if that's the right thing to say, like what I just said. I put entirely way too much pressure. Does that even make any sense? Okay, whatever. Let's go over this. I've tried to record this podcast way too many times, and I'm just over it, so I'm going to just keep going. Please ignore my bad grammar. So, yes, failing the exam. It was really difficult, and I definitely did some comparing, which you're not supposed to do. Never compare yourself. Comparison is the killer of happiness. Isn't that the quote? Something like that. I had 2 girls in my class that same week pass the exam in the beginning of the week, and then I took it on Friday and I failed it, and I told a couple people I was going to take it, which I would not recommend that unless you're really close with them, because I feel like that just put more pressure on myself. If you're the type of person that doesn't care, then go for it. But there's absolutely no pressure. I was entirely, oh, here we go again. I'm just going to stop using that word. I was way too stressed going into this exam, and it was not a good combination. I second guessed myself on so many questions. I went back and changed my answers. I know the most important study tip everyone gives you is go with your gut. Well, I just didn't trust myself. And please, if you go away from this podcast, please remember that you are ready for this exam. You've been working so hard towards this very moment, and all of your undergrad experience, and hopefully your internship experience was awesome. Mine was, and I think my supervisor prepared me so well for the exam. There were a lot of questions on there where I just thought, oh my gosh, I learned this in internship. So thankful for her. And really drilling me on these things that are really important. And to be honest, not all of the things on the exam are going to be life-changing, or like a life or death situation where if you don't know it, it doesn't make you less of a music therapist. So all that matters is that you pass the exam. Please do not worry about your score either. So yes, failing the exam, that was a rough day, because I also at the time I had 2 contracting positions, or I was employed by 2 different LLCs. And so I felt like there was a lot of pressure on that too, because my bosses, were just, goodness, they were not depending on me to pass. I was still able to work after, but that's a big deal for insurance. So yes, failing just sucked. And if you failed the exam, or even if you haven't, this exam, it's tricky, because in a lot of ways, I think you are way more prepared for it than you think you are. And so that means you overthink things and you think 2 steps ahead instead of just 1 step, which is what they want you to do during the exam. So what I learned is that anyone can pass the exam, and I changed a lot of things, and we'll talk about that now. So, the steps I took to change the results, including lifestyle and study habits. All right, let me think about this. How do I want to start this? All right. After my exam, or after I failed the exam the first time, like I said, I was pretty upset. And I was reading online about how amazing exercising is for alertness, attention, motivation, memory, all these amazing things. I'm sure a lot of you know that exercising is so important. And I wasn't really doing a lot of that. And, the day after my exam, I got an Orange Theory membership because I knew it was going to force me to go. So I started going to the gym. I saw all of those things happen. I came home, I was able to study for more than 10 minutes at a time. I had lots of motivation. I felt like I was retaining the information better. So I think, honestly, exercise played a huge role in me passing the second time around. And another thing I would recommend is taking a walk or doing some type of physical exercise before sitting down to study, because it really does help with your attention. there was a study or a podcast I was listening to that mentioned a study about people that did this, and their test results increased significantly compared to the people that just sat sedentary for 10 minutes prior to doing a little test. So yes, definitely exercise, honestly, is one of my most important tips for this whole thing. So what else did I do? I prioritize my sleep. Please do that. I really don't like it when people prioritize. It's good to prioritize studying, but do not prioritize it over your sleep, because it's going to be like this negative cycle. And if you don't get enough sleep, then you're not going to have a good day the next day, and you're not going to be motivated to study, or you're not going to retain the information as well. So please prioritize your health. Don't eat like crap. Take care of yourself. Eat a fruit every once in a while. Don't eat all this processed. Just get your life together, okay? Because I promise you, I did this, or I got my life together, and I think it really helped with my exam outcome the second time. All right, study habits. I kind of touched on this earlier. Do what works for you. I personally listen to myself talk in the car. I learned that I am more of an auditory learner. I made flashcards, so when I was kind of in limbo in between sessions, I would just pull them out. I would keep them in my car. They wouldn't really leave the car, so I think consistency was honestly key for studying. And you don't have to study, for 3 hours a day. That is crazy. I heard when I first started searching about tips online, I saw that this one lady recommended everyone study for 3 hours a day. And I was like, what the heck? 3 hours a day? Who has time for that? And unless you've had a terrible internship experience or a terrible undergrad experience, I don't think you need to be studying for 3 hours a day. So, yes, just study for little bits throughout the day. And if you have no motivation at the end of the day, at least watch a YouTube video or do some passive studying. So, what else? What are some other study habits that I have for you? Okay. So, this isn't really... I guess we'll just skip to the tips that I have. Alright, so... this is a huge, I think another huge reason why I passed. I think there's a ton of huge reasons why I passed. I've been listing them, but this one was pretty big. So I watched this awesome workshop video of this lady who explained the CBMT exam and how it is just a standardized test. And you really need to take it that way. You need to go in there and think, okay, anyone can pass this exam. They want me to brush through go through the easy ones really fast, and then spend a lot of time on the hard questions. Don't do that. What you're going to do is, you see a hard question, you bookmark it. There's an option for you to bookmark the question on the exam, or you write it down on your piece of paper if you don't want to do that. You get 2 pieces of paper. I only got 1, and then I asked for a second one. I think you can ask for more. I took it at an H&R Block. They were super awesome. I loved it. And they also gave me earplugs, which I used because people are walking in and out in the office, and you can hear the door open and close, so I needed it to be dead silent, which worked for me. Sorry, I'm I'm off topic. Okay, write down the hard question on your piece of paper, or bookmark it, skip it, go to the easy questions, and do not just skim through them. Please read the question. please, please, please. Just because it's easy, like they want you to do bad on the easy questions and take up lots of times on the hard questions. So my biggest piece of advice is to not rush through the easy questions and come back to the hard questions at the very end of the exam. And just take your best educated guess, because the wrong questions are not going to count against you. And another huge tip: you cannot eliminate the questions on the computer. So I did it. I wrote them out on the piece of paper they give you. I just wrote A, B, C, D, and then I crossed off that way. And honestly, that helped me so much, because the first time I took it, I didn't do that. And, okay, another tip I have: do something nice for yourself that day. What did I do? I went on a walk with my dogs, kind of treated it as a normal day. I got a matcha from Starbucks, and I got there really early because I just didn't want to stress about, being late, because you have to, I don't know how much it costs, what happens if you miss it, but I just didn't want to risk that, so I got there early, did some deep breaths, I had some mantras, and I kept telling myself, I am an MTBC, I am an MTBC. I said that for 4 weeks before the exam, and so would my parents. They were very supportive, and just speak it into existence. I'm not saying just do that and you're magically going to become board certified, but it definitely helps. It's definitely better than being down on yourself. So yes, do something nice for yourself that day. Know that you are a music therapist, and that exam does not determine your self-worth. Please know that. And what else do I have for y'all? Let me look at my piece of paper. Oh, let me go over some of the topics that I saw in the exam that were repeated the second time I took it. 12-bar blues, suicide, hospice referral, groups, look at group vignettes. Let's see. Schizophrenia, theoretical orientations, what else? Piaget's hierarchy of needs, and Maslow's. I feel like I'm getting this wrong. Piaget and Maslow. Is it Maslow? Is that how you say it? Yeah, Maslow. Okay, I just had to Google that. What else? Termination was a huge one, especially with inpatient psychiatric facilities. What else? Lots of groups. Yeah, focus on groups. Fire safety, that was one that kept repeating. HIV, AIDS. What to do with confrontation. I wrote a lot of specifics down from this exam, so feel free to contact me if you would like the specifics. I just don't want to get in trouble for that. I don't know if you can. Pain management, prioritizing patients, like who should you prioritize? Referrals, staff is not referring correctly. What do you do? Things like that. So let me see if I have any other advice. For music theory, there was like a weird question. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me pause this. Okay, so I can't find this specific question, but I found some other things that I remember from the exam. Know the different parts of their brain and their functions. An acronym I used was FPOT. And let's see. Here we go. Oh, bilabial syllable, which is like it would be baby, because it's the B. Hospice referrals. Tone bars and alto xylophone. Latency time. And yeah, I think that's it. If I think of the composer question, I'll let you know. Right now I cannot think of it. I'm sorry. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. I'm sorry I'm not the best at talking, but I hope you guys got some helpful tips out of this, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. All right, bye-bye.